Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Good day to all of you who are our loyal followers and all of you who are our new followers. We say welcome to another edition of Money Radio on Leadership Podcast. Today we're discussing a pressing issue, and that is an issue that is still hot on the minds of many Nigerians, and that is the growing menace of building collapse and its consequences on real estate development in Nigeria. Yes, from the Ikoyi building collapse just experienced, it brings to mind the fact that every year on average over the past 10 years alone, we have 10 major building collapse incidents going on in the country. And that is alarming. You will agree with me.
Yeah.
So, I'm your host, Case Hammond, for today's Money Radio, and that is the National Economic segment of Money Radio. You're welcome. And with me in the studio are Mr. Paul Uadima and Mr. Isaac Aimuria. You're welcome.
Pleasure to be here, Kes.
Welcome. Yes, we're talking about the growing menace of building collapse in the country. First of all, let's start with this issue. What is Nigeria's housing stock right now in tandem with the demand for housing?
Okay, that's a very good question. Nigeria has between 17 million to 22 million housing deficits. I'm sure right now, according to the UNDP and many other organizations.
What really does that mean when you say
What
we
it
have
means-
deficit? Does that mean
What it
that
means
17
that
million
17
people?
million houses or 22 million houses are what is required to house Nigerians adequately. So that's the gap that needs to be filled.
And it's a huge
And
gap.
that is basically fuel as a result of high rural-urban migration. Because if you look at the Nigeria, like most other African countries, we have high level of urbanization. People are abandoning the villages and moving to the cities. And when they move to the cities, they look for houses. Even though many people, at least, they have one form of accommodation in their villages, but when they get to the urban centers, they are forced to look for accommodation. So most of these housing deficits are basically found in the urban centers, in major cities around the country. And they were fueled by rural-urban migration. And as a result of that, government alone cannot meet this requirement. The private sectors are actively involved in it, yet this gap should still remain because of our growing population, both in terms of the general high birth rate, the growing population, the growing working population, and all that. So that is what is driving the request or the quest for housing in major urban cities in Nigeria.
That is alarming. A report a report that was released by, I think it was that UNDP. It shows that on average, over the next 3 decades, Nigeria will need on average 700,000 housing units to meet up with the demand. And at the moment, we have just about 100,000 housing units being developed annually. That is sure. That is, like he said, that is likely to increase the gap. That is the demand gap for housing. That is alarming.
Yes.
So, what was the way out? Or how dire is that situation? First of all, let's talk about how dire it is.
Yeah, I'll start by interrogating the data.
Okay.
Okay, because these data that you bandy about, they are estimates.
Yes.
At best.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because they really don't go from street to street, village to village, town to town, okay, taking stock, okay, or taking count, okay,
Yeah.
of these houses. They are just projections, okay. They use they do use random sampling, do some interviews.
Yes.
For example, we're in Abuja. We know that if all the houses in this town were opened for people to inhabit, okay, of course, would the figure that we're talking about will reduce drastically.
That is an interesting point.
Yes,
because you go around this
there are
city and you see that there are
empty
many empty houses.
empty estates. I'm coming to the point. I'm coming to. But I just want us to interrogate the data.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because these international agencies, that's actually what they do. And just like when they're also doing university ranking and all that, they just do it online. They look at universities that have online presence, and they use their parameters and arrive at some conclusions. However, do we need more housing? Yes, we do. Okay, but back to the topic. Building collapse.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a problem? The answer is yes.
Yes.
And why is this so? And I tell you, it is failure on the part of government, okay, to regulate, to effectively regulate, okay, that sector. It happened at TB Joshua's, church,
Yes.
some time ago, and of course, press went to town, and we thought drastic action will be taken. Okay. Before that, there were so many others. Okay?
Yes.
So I think it is time, for government to actually, those Ministry of Housing, at federal and state levels to come together and say, hey, not anymore. Okay, this must not continue. Okay, if the building code is outdated, it has to be reviewed. Okay, and there has to be punishment. Punishment. People should be killed. For failing in their duty. Okay, to supervise adequately, developments in that sector.
So you were countering what?
Yes, I have to counter it because it was the same argument that the Minister of Works and Housing made. Fashola, Babatunde Fashola. He made that argument before. He said there were no building deficit. That what
I didn't say.
He said that what we have is.
There was no deficit.
He said there were no 22 million.
And I was particular about Abuja.
Deficit
Okay,
and all that. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
That was what he was. At the same time, after saying that there was no deficit, he was going about the whole country, bragging everywhere that they are building so and so. Federal government is building housing estate. So why are they building it if there were no deficits? What was he building it for? Is it for animals? It's not for human beings. There's somebody that said there were no deficit. Yet you are mentioning federal government housing estates all over the country.
All right.
Are you getting it?
Yeah.
Even the Abuja people are talking about. If you look at the housing availability for the low income earners, who are the majority workers in the FCT.
Yeah.
Why are many of them living in the suburb? Why are they not living somewhere that would be 15 minutes drive to their place of works?
Yeah, and that's why.
Doesn't that tell you something? There's something
The
wrong.
cost, I don't understand. The cost
So that's about the deficit.
prohibitively high.
It's about.
Are you getting it? One of these houses that are unoccupied are mainly in high growth areas.
Yeah,
Are you getting it? So at the end of the day, what's important is to provide housing that is available for the low income earners, because that is actually the gap that needs to be bridged. Because already the elites are warehouse. I don't think any elite, quote unquote, is not adequately housed in Nigeria. At least they provided adequate accommodation for themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Let's
it is the low income earners that are this deficit we are talking about.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are talking about, where the drivers live.
Yes.
Where the gardeners live. Where the megads live. Where all the middle end income earners live. The deficit is alarming.
Yeah.
And nobody can, you can't dismiss it by just saying people are picking up stats. Say no, it's not true.
Okay, let's look at it from
it's a fact.
Please, I need to correct it there.
Yeah.
I didn't say there was no housing deficit. I only just said that we needed to interrogate,
That's
the
the
stats.
figures.
You get it? And
Yeah.
I was very particular about Abuja. And of course, we all know that there are so many houses in Abuja.
And
on
I
occupied.
clarify that because those empty houses,
Okay, let's
Occupied.
those are empty
So the
houses.
emphasis should be affordable houses.
Yes.
now let's look at the issue. Really, the issue right now is actually not the
We are talking about
affordable
the
houses
building
that we're
collapse.
talking about. These building collapse we are talking about are actually mighty buildings.
Yeah.
Now, and you know, when we talk about mighty buildings, we are talking about buildings that inflict actually high collateral damage on people. Let's look at a few instances in recent times. Apart from the Kui, and I actually is Fort Worth. Should I say it was a blessing that this building did not reach the level where people would begin to occupy it before this tragedy took place.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have
Yeah.
been far worse than
Yeah.
50 persons being
Claim
affected.
more lives.
It would have claimed many lives.
Yeah.
Now, but we are talking about these kind of buildings, high and mighty buildings,
And in a highbrow area.
and highbrow area. Now, I want to bring your attention to your attention. You talked earlier about the TB Joshua church, yes, that dormitory. And then there was this building, this church building in Uyo a few years ago.
Yes.
And the governor narrowly escaped because he was on his way to that building not commission, but to be at the opening ceremony,
Participate in the program.
the program. And just before he got there, that incident
Collapsed, yes.
collapsed. And really, I've not seen anybody. I don't know. Maybe I've not been following the news, but nothing has been said yet about prosecuting the builders, the owner, those people who took part in.
Yeah, very
Now, these are the kind of buildings we are talking about. We are not talking because we hardly hear about these bungalows collapsing or the.
Even the bungalows collapse, but we will hear about
Yes.
it. We wouldn't make much news.
Now,
It does.
government for a building like this, look at the structure there. For a building like this, you would expect that there will be proper monitoring of this kind of structure. This is a 21-story structure.
Yeah.
There should be proper monitoring. If
heartbreaking.
government cannot, if the capacity is not there to monitor how bungalows and 1, 2, 3-story buildings are being constructed, a building like this should be on the spotlight of the state government. But we see that this thing went on. A few persons who went to this site were just looking at the material used, and it was like much sand for a building like this.
No, but you can even see the rods. See the
Yeah.
rods that were used. You know, if the mix was adequate, okay,
Yes.
you see that the rods will be bound.
Yes.
The rods will be bound by the mix.
Yes.
You get it?
That's
The
true.
cement, the concrete mix, you know, it will be bound, especially the ones at the lower levels,
Yes.
okay, of the building. So if the rods came out this way, you understand? So it means, you know, nothing was actually holding it. Nothing was binding it.
Yes.
Yeah,
You get it?
I
Means
think
the
that's
mix was
why there will
compromised.
be need for investigation.
Yes, it means
Because
the mix
let
was
us be
compromised.
clear about it.
Yeah.
This is a multi-billion naira investment.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
put his money here and want it to collapse.
Yeah.
I do not think the owner of this building want it to collapse. So I think that's why there's a need for investigation, both by the company that owns the building and by the government, so that we can get to the root of the real reason why the building collapsed. Because nobody will put a multi-billion naira investment like this and allow it to collapse.
Nobody-
So that's an interesting area we need to look at.
Yes.
However, people cut corners, and in a country where you know, we don't, where those who are supposed to enforce the laws, you know, are not doing their job, or are probably not to do their job very well, you know, I mean, people can cut corners.
Okay.
Compromise.
You raised an interesting point there.
Yeah.
Nobody would sink his
Yes.
money into a
Because I
structure
don't
like
think
this
that
and
the owner of
expect
this
it to.
building
Yeah.
But people
would
do cut
intentionally
corners.
sabotage
When
it.
we come back,
maximize profits.
when we
Yes.
come back from a break, we want to take a break now. When we come back, we want to discuss these issues. Nobody will want to put his money into a structure like this and expect it to collapse. Meanwhile, People cut corners. So we want to look at these two
Yeah.
issues and merge them when we cut from the break. Please continue to be with us. We'll be back just in a moment.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money. Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back to Money Radio. You're on to the national economy segment of Money Radio, and we are discussing an interesting issue today: the menace of building collapse and its implications on Nigeria building industry. That's what we are discussing. Just before we went on break, we were talking about two issues here. Nobody would like to sink his money into a building without a long-term expectation of making profit. That means nobody wants to sink his money into something that will collapse. On the other hand, people cut corners, and that is clear from the pictures we see there that those building materials are not standard.
You know, I don't want to preempt. I understand the committee has been set up to investigate the cause of the collapse. I don't want to preempt the outcome of their work. But some initial reports, that have made the news in the past few days point to the fact that that this building at some point,
Yes.
Some government agencies that supervise buildings in Lagos actually stopped them.
Yes.
Came to the site and say, hey, you cannot exceed this level.
Yes.
Considering the building plan, the approved building plan that you are working with. There's also another claim that the first set of contractors that were working on it, abandoned the project when they told them to exceed, the approved, level.
Yes.
Okay, we are yet to confirm or to confirm that. Okay, then there's also another report, that at some point the engineer on site was also arrested, and some calls came from, whether some superior authorities, that they should release the man and all that. All that is in the public, domain. However, like I said earlier, it is time for those saddled with the responsibility to regulate this sector to actually sit up. Because we cannot afford, another collapse of this magnitude. We cannot, as a country. We understand that we're fine as a developing country. Weak institution is one of the hallmarks, of third world, country, third world countries. But I mean, look at the number of people that have died. These are deaths that could have been avoided.
More than 40%.
You understand? If only the regulators, did their job. Like my friend said earlier, that we shouldn't just be talking about high-rise buildings. We should also talk about bungalows, one-story building. Because there are some buildings you move into now with just one-story building. They tell you cannot pound the arm, on the first floor. As you are entering, the landlord will ask you, do you have a mortar? Please, you don't pound the arm, on top of my house.
Yes.
If you want to pound the arm, you come to the ground, come to the basement.
Yes.
And they'll tell you they'll create a space for you to pound the arm or pound fufu or pound whatever it is you are pounding, because he knows that the materials used, for the decking, are compromised. Or perhaps when he was supposed to use 6 inches decking, maybe he did 5 inches. Where he was supposed to do 9 inches in some cases, he probably did 6 inches. So the regulators should actually be on the ground, from site to site, to supervise buildings right from foundation. That's what we need now.
Mr. Paul,
Yeah.
you talk about the long-term interest of builders. Now, I was tempted at a time. Look, take a look at this structure here.
Like what he's saying about regulators sitting up is actually the right thing to do, because it's the regulators that must ensure that the building guidelines are followed, the building plan are followed. Because in a country like ours now, where we don't have national building code, which is still lying there with the National Assembly,
Yes.
states have responsibility to regulate building structures in their states. And the town planning authorities are the ones saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that all the buildings in their state or in their state capital, their towns, adhere to the town planning rules and regulations. So it's their responsibility to do that. However, there is also need for internal checks and balances, because corruption is a major problem in Nigeria, in the public service, both those in the ministries that supervise all these works when they are going on. But the internal mechanism, those who are involved in real estate development should also have their own internal mechanism, because their own reputation is at stake.
It is.
If you are an engineer, a site engineer, you're a structural engineer, and your building collapse, it is a shame. I think the Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, it has to reach a point where those who are registered engineers that supervise a building collapse, there should be disciplinary action taken against them. And then the companies that own these building construction companies should also look at who are their suppliers of building materials. Where are the building materials coming from? Because this building material I'm looking at, where did they get it from? Is it from Nigeria? Did they import it from whichever country? Because these are some of the things that need to be identified, so that Nigeria can avoid the people manufacturing the roads. If the problem is the kind of raw materials, engineering materials, building material that was used to construct this building that collapsed. Because why this is important is because the man that started building this house that collapsed had successful building of houses in high-brow areas in London, in South Africa. He has also built some in Lagos that are standing. So there must be something that didn't work out well, something that went wrong somewhere in this particular one.
Look,
that should be identified, that will help future builders so that they don't repeat this kind of mistake again. So it is not a question of blaming only the supervisors from government. Both the engineering companies should have a mechanism by themselves of identifying the kind of building materials and those they subcontract some of the jobs. Because if something is supposed to be done by 10 bags of cement and they use 3 bags of cement, and somebody come and they plaster it well, he says it's okay. And at the end of the day, you have a tragedy. So these are some of the things that need to be looked into.
Yeah, very true. Perhaps another dimension we also need to look at, is the issue of insurance. Okay, because if the insurance companies, unfortunately, it is not such a popular.
Yes.
It's an important issue, because I don't think somebody will build this 21 story building without insurance. I think it needs to be found that there must be an insurance
company. If an insurance company was to be part of this,
they will want to monitor it.
Of course they will.
They would want to monitor it. That's an
But are you trying to say that these gigantic projects
I don't have all the information
without insurance?
I
think there should be an insurance.
So there's something that was coming to my mind. Something was coming to my mind.
This country, anything goes. Maybe somebody can build a 21-story building
Without insurance. So look at the pillars here. The pillars are actually tiny.
Are you sure this is the building?
I don't know if this is the building. But even if the pillars are. So that brings to my something, another issue of building. Nigeria has a variety of topography.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a place like Enugu, you will see that the soil there is so strong, it's compact.
Yeah.
such that, in fact, an architecture student told me that with this kind of soil, you may not even need reinforcement to build because the ground is there and it's strong enough. But that is different from a place like Lagos, especially Lagos Island,
See,
where if you are building
in the building code,
yes,
it is there. You understand? Before you get approval, okay, the supervisory authority will come. Before you even start your foundation, they will do soil test. Okay? To
Yes.
determine whether that soil can actually withstand the plan you have. That is the building you want to.
should
erect.
we say
There.
professionals are not being used? I asked the question because
Yes.
I will let me cite a few examples. If you go to Lagos Island, for
Yes.
example, a building like Elephant Building,
Mhm.
a building like this one just opposite the Elephant Building, that there's a high rise there owned by I don't let me say the owner.
Yeah.
But that energy building is there. If you look in a place like Ibadan,
Mhm.
you see that a building like a Cocoa House, those buildings were constructed
I must
in
tell
the
you,
60s.
Then we had high regard for laws in this country. Then corruption wasn't working in all four.
So does that mean
as
we are
have
not
now.
improving,
No, of course.
we're not
No, of course.
improving
No,
on
clearly,
our
clearly
building
we have not.
ethics?
Clearly we have not. Because that is it. If you want to build, even at the state level, everywhere, they'll tell you they will come do soil tests. Okay? To be sure that it can actually take that building, whatever building you do, before you get the approval. They will tell you no, this soil cannot stand 10-story building, 21-story building. Okay, so that is why, for example, if you go to Lagos, you see the reclamation work that's ongoing in Lagos.
Yes.
Okay, my worry is if tomorrow there is earth tremor, just a little underground movement around that Lekki axis.
That will be
It is not what we pray for, but
disaster.
I can bet you that all those houses will go under.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
we don't have much time left. Let's get your last words. We need to talk about consequences now of such irresponsible actions by builders. So, what consequences are we recommending now? What do you think about consequences?
Like I told you earlier on, the best thing is that there should be professional consequences. Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria must ensure that they take disciplinary action against their members who participate in any building construction that collapsed, like what we saw in Ikoyi and elsewhere. And then if it were done by a quack engineer, they should also make sure that such engineers are handed over to the security agencies to prosecute them for undertaking a job that they're not qualified to do. And that's basically the only way. The idea that a building of this magnitude can collapse and the structural engineers and all those who participated in this building are nowhere to be found, or people are speculating who are they. Even the people that are allegedly signed that they will no longer do more than certain number of stairs, there are indications that you can't even trace their whereabouts.
Do you know that? There was no manifesto. People entering that.
Sadly, much of these activities happen informally.
Yes.
Informally. As we speak, people are building your backyard. So you really can't.
We
need to have a conversation. If you ask me, it is just beyond just engineers.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, when people die, these people are related to you. They're related to me.
Yeah.
They are our friends. Okay. So we need to have that conversation so that we bring in the police and other security agencies, civil society organization, and all of that. Okay. So that we can actually agree on what punishment, we can melt out.
I can state this, although it's for the.
If you break the law and your building kill somebody, you should be killed.
You should be charged for murder.
You should be killed.
You should be killed. Yes.
It's not that you should be, but there are laws that will take care of that.
I am not against. I am one person who is not against the death penalty. This death penalty.
You review the building code. You review the law. And melt out appropriate punishment.
This death penalty has sanitized places like China.
Yeah.
China used to be.
You talked about UK. You said this man had built this in UK.
In the UK.
I mean, you couldn't have done this in the UK.
Yes. So places like China, Singapore, these places have been
Of
sanitized.
course,
as a
you could have
result of
done
this.
this in UK because even the UK citizens you will hire to do the job
Yeah.
we know that they have to do the
there are
right.
layers
So,
of
there is
regulations.
layers of law-abiding
Yes,
citizens.
yes.
layers of regulations. Layers
Yes,
of,
but in Nigeria, people like to cut corners.
institutions.
Just before
And,
we go, I would like to make a comment. I have heard stories, and when I say I've heard stories, I'm talking about from reliable sources, people who are part of these building projects. I'm not talking about the project, the magnitude of these, but duplexes, where laborers, out of anger that the owner of the building or whoever is hiring them is not paying them their condign payment, they retaliate by burying their cement. That is when they are not around. Instead of using the cement on the building, they dig holes and bury it.
or they even
All
cut away
kinds
the
of
building
things
material.
For the just to make sure that your building.
Supervision is poor.
Yes,
If supervision
supervision
is
is
poor.
poor.
All kinds of things will happen.
That is so sad. We need to get out of this. So the onus lies with government to actually make sure that there are regulations that are enforced, and
The private
examples
sector,
are made of.
And the engineers,
even the owners of
Yeah,
the
professional
construction
bodies,
companies
yeah.
must also be vigilant.
They must be
Yeah.
vigilant.
in whatever
professional
building they are
bodies, the
constructing.
professional bodies should also have, their, in-house measures, for checking, this.
A standard, I know
professional
of an
practices.
organization here in Nigeria, a standard for building for molding blocks
Yeah.
should be 1 bag of cement for 25 blocks. But some people do 50. No, that's 25.
20 actually.
Yes.
20.
But there are some people who do 50, and that is wrong.
That's it. That's all sad.
That's the much we can take today on the Money Radio. It's a sad one. Today's discussion is actually it's sad.
Yeah, I had to go out to the families of, the dead.
Yeah. I heard about a youth couple and then a lady, a beautiful lady who had just taken up a job with the owner of that building. She was there. She should have gotten married in December. What a sad story.
So it's sad.
Yeah, so that's the much we can take today on the Money Radio. Thanks for following us loyally. Thanks to you,
Thanks,
Isaac,
guys.
and for being with us today. Thanks to you, our producers. We say be with us again tomorrow for another bumper edition of Money Radio. COVID-19 is real. Stay safe. Stay blessed.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.